it's been 4 months since I last made a video, which I could say that I'm sorry about, but that would be lying because I'm not sorry, because I've had so much other stuff to do and I've quite enjoyed doing the other stuff, so you get a video now. I'm sure you're all very pleased. I've made 5 new costumes this year! 5 new costumes! I haven't made that many new costumes per year since, I don't even know. Like, I haven't voluntarily made that many new costumes per year in a long time. Plus I actually fixed up one older costume, so that essentially means that I've made 6 new costumes this year, sort of, or like 5.5. I kind of want to talk about why I've made so many new costumes this year, because there's a reason for it. And the reason is that I sucked at RECosplay. I don't think I ever made a video because I was so upset with myself. I felt like I let myself down, because back after WCS in 2012, I fell into a sort of a cosplay slump where I just didn't even want to think about making costumes for almost a year. And that unfortunately happened to me after the RECosplay selections in June 2014, which was a bit unfortunate considering that I was supposed to fix up my costume for the final in October. So in general, I'm just really unhappy with my performance in general at RECosplay final, so yeah. But the fortunate thing about the fact that I was so mad at myself after RECosplay, I was so upset and so kind of let down by everything I did, was that instead of kind of going back into that slump, I think I kind of just reached a point of, well, fuck it all, to quote a certain Australian philosopher. I kind of reached a point where I just decided that, well, this is not happening again. I'm not letting myself down like this again. I don't want to do this ever again. The whole thing, it kind of gave me the kick to sort of be better, but it also made me realize that I can't get better at making costumes if I don't enjoy doing it, which is a fairly simple thing to understand, and it's pretty dumb that it takes me a trip to London and a bit of soul searching and kind of hating myself up on stage to realize that, but I realized that, and this year I've kind of completely just somehow managed to make costumes that have all reminded me about the things that I love about cosplay. The first costume that I made this year was Inova from Magic Knight Rayeth, and Magic Knight Rayeth was a show that I used to watch religiously every morning before school when I was 14. And I thought Inova was so cool, he was so pretty, and he was so great and so tragic. And kind of cosplaying him was, in a way, kind of like realizing a childhood dream a bit. So that was great, and since the costume is fairly simple, because I've made so many uniform costumes like that before, I kind of felt that it was easy to make, and it made me feel like, okay, I might actually be kind of good at something. I was happy with the costume. I was happy with what I made. It was a simple thing, but I was happy that I achieved it. The second costume that I made this year was Masayoshi from Samurai Flamenco, which, if you haven't watched it, I don't know, you'll probably hate it because my taste in anime is atrocious, but Flamenco is without a doubt one of my favorite anime shows ever, so feel free to laugh at me, but I love it to bits. And Masayoshi is such a spirit animal to me. He's just, yeah, I relate to him so much that it's actually quite embarrassing, but I decided to do like a very casual version of him. I made one of his ugly hoodies, put on a pair of skinny jeans and awful shoes and a weird anime host club boy wig, and that was it. That was super simple, it was super comfortable, and it was a character that I love. So it was also like a reminder for me that cosplay can be comfortable as well. It can be easy. You can just make one hoodie and you can actually look pretty much exactly like the character that you love and adore and relate to and understand on so many levels. And the third costume that I made this year, And let's remember that we're still in February at this point. The third costume that I made this year, I started working on immediately after I got back home from Desugon Frostbite. We were going to be flying to Denmark for JPopCon 5 days after Frostbite, I think. And for some reason, while I was sitting in the car while we were driving back home, I just got it in my head that I absolutely need to make a new version of Urich. Because Urich is... I'm not happy with the costume, like I mentioned earlier, because it's such... There's so much going on, and I didn't have the time to finish it as well as I would have liked. And I got so much better at stuff while I was making the costume that at some point the parts of the costume that I've made first started to look less good than the bits that I've made last. And there was so much inconsistency within parts of the... among the parts of that costume that it just kind of... It feels like a clusterfuck to me, I'm sorry. But it's just... I don't feel comfortable wearing the costume because I don't stand 100% behind it. So, obviously, the obvious choice for me was to make a better version of Urich. So I chose the in-game, like, more decidedly more casual version of him. And because that's... I really like the design. It's like a very generic leather jacket and leather trousers and boots. Raw design. Plus, the version that I made is actually inaccurate as hell. There are so many things missing, but it's still completely recognizable, and I feel like I kind of took my own spin on the design, and that was super fun. And I somehow managed to do that in less than 5 days. I still have no idea how. I don't think I slept. I think I slept, but I don't remember sleeping. But it didn't feel unpleasant to make the costume because I was so happy to be making it. I was so happy to be working with materials I was familiar with. I was happy to be making things that I knew how to make. So it was like I didn't run into any kinks or problems or anything while I was making it. So it was like, it was a pleasure to make. I got to cosplay Urich and actually be happy about the costume that I was wearing. So that was great. I kind of like neutralized the EC trauma by doing that. So that was great. That was fantastic. That was a good job. Great job, self. Hurrah! And the fourth costume that I made this year was Killer Queen from the fantastic musical by Queen and Ben Elton, We Will Rock You. We Will Rock You is a musical that I first saw in 2002. And when I say first, I do really mean first because I've seen the musical at least a dozen times. I think it might actually be closer to 15 times or something. Unfortunately, the show doesn't run anymore, which is a shame. It is a shame. The musical has a very, very special place in my heart. And the main villain in the musical is Killer Queen. She's this amazing queen bitch of the world with a terrible sense of fashion, very drag-ish sense of fashion, but somehow she's just exactly the kind of lady villain that I really love and adore, and just, she's amazing. I've been joking about it a lot of times that, oh, I'll cosplay Killer Queen at one point, haha. But then I kind of figured, why the hell not? Why not do it? It's been quite a few years since you first saw the musical, why not make the costume? So I did. And once again, just with the more casual version with Urich, there weren't any new super difficult techniques to use while making that costume, so it was pleasant, and it was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time. And when I got to host the cosplay show on Sunday of Pop Cult in April, I'm doing this with my hands a lot, pretend that I'm juggling. I got to host the cosplay show on Sunday, and I did it as Killer Queen, and I actually got to do a bit of an intro number as her, which was freaking amazing, because I know the musical by heart at this point, and because if you make a character from a musical, you do need to get up on stage in that costume. So it was really nice. It was fantastic. I was so happy to be able to do that. But to get back to the point, which is costume number 5. So, as a bit of background, all my friends I have like 2 friends. No, a lot of the people that I spent time with or know of have played the Dragon Age games and are quite enthusiastic about them. And I was very skeptical about this because I am a terrible gamer. I suck at anything that isn't Tetris or Crash Bandicoot. So I was skeptical. But sometime in February, I think I accidentally bought the first Dragon Age game, and then it's just been like a steady descent into Dragon Age hell. And then I played Dragon Age Awakenings and I met Anders and then I played Dragon Age 2 and there Anders was again. I'm not going to allow myself to go any deeper into my Anders hell because that's a very special brand of hell for me. But let's just say that it was pretty obvious pretty quickly that I would have to cosplay Anders. Despite the fact that I'm physically nothing like him and it bothers me a lot on multiple occasions, but at least I get to paint my face to look very tired and very old and very disapproving, which is very entertaining. Originally my idea for Anders was to take my time with the costume because I wanted to use materials that were kind of like as accurate as possible because I used real leather. I bought some old leather jackets from a flea market and just chopped them up, and I wanted to use like really natural materials and like go into that direction that I wanted to take with Urich, but didn't really have the resources to do at the time because I wasn't good enough to do it. And at this point I was like, okay, well, I'll just try these things with Anders. It's not as elaborate of a costume as Urich was, so it's probably going to be easier. And I started working on the costume and I had so much fun. I enjoyed. I don't think there's... Okay, the coat was hell because there are 100 squares, leather squares that are... Each of them is a different shape because they do need to make up like the actual shape of the coat that isn't just a rectangle. It has shapes. No, that was not a smart choice. That was the part where I started to regret my choices and look at my life and my choices and my everything, and just every time I walked past a mirror I was like... Eventually I just ended up finishing it for Desukon in June because Mayu was going to wear her Fenris and Mayu is the best Fenris ever, so I kind of couldn't pass up the chance. Somehow I think Anders ended up being a very, very, very special costume to me because I genuinely did not expect for it to be such an important thing as it has turned out to be because, okay, yeah, well, first of all, the whole Dragon Age Hell thing, the Dragon Age fandom is a crazy place. It's full of very, very unpleasant people, but it's also full of pretty freaking fantastic people. And I think I got to experience this firsthand when I went to the Dutch Anime Con in June, and essentially I went there on my own. I did run, of course I have friends and I know people from around Europe and I met up with them in the Netherlands, but essentially I was traveling on my own. I was cosplaying on my own. I took Anders with me and I cosplayed. I put on the costume, and like 15 minutes after I came out of the dressing room, this very, very adorable hawk comes up to me and she was like, there are other Dragon Age cosplayers over there, want to hang out? And I did, and they were amazing. You guys are amazing. If you are watching this, I hope you are. I hope you've made it this far. But yeah, you guys are awesome. All those Dragon Age people at the Dutch Anime Con. You were great. You were fantastic. You were incredible. And it just kind of... I feel like the costume has... I mentioned that the costumes that I've made this year have reminded me about things that are good and like lovable about cosplay, and I think with Anders it's obviously a character that I love. It's a costume that I'm really proud of, even though I still do continue to work on it because I want to make it as good as possible. but it also reminded me that you can actually meet some pretty freaking fantastic people through cosplay just because you're wearing a certain costume at a certain convention. If I do have to make a choice and pick a favorite costume from the ones that I've made this year, it's without a doubt Anders. Not simply because of what the costume looks like or how well it's made, but because of the great stuff that I've got to experience while I'm wearing it. More on that on the later recap later this year, because this video is going to be 50,000 years long if I keep rambling. I think the year 2015 is going to go down in history as the year that I learned to love cosplay again, like truly actually love it, and remember what the good things about cosplay are, because sometimes you do forget, and you get too you get kind of stuck in your own head, and you kind of get into that mentality that cosplay is all about like churning out costumes and making as much stuff as possible from as popular sources as possible, and just it's all a popularity contest and blah blah, because it's not. It has so many other things that make cosplay a hobby that's worth doing. And I think this year my costumes, all of them, have reminded me of why I love this damn hobby so goddamn much. And that's a very nice and sappy note to end this video with. Keep your clothes on. I'll see you next time.